Hey guys, it's Vince. Today in this video, we're going to be reviewing an email that was sent from a potential client of mine after we discussed his leasing of a plasma system from a specific vendor. I'm not going to disclose who that vendor is, but I was told by this potential client some really disturbing things about this vendor, and not just dealing with the machine. So what I want to give you a breakdown on is what we actually discussed in the first consultation that I actually contacted him about. And what he told me, he explained that the vendor apparently, after he watched my video, meaning the potential client, he explained to the vendor, look, none of my machine's cables are shielded at all. I'm having all kinds of issues that, once again, I've pointed out in my videos. And the vendor explained to him, well, none of my competitors use shielded cable on their systems, therefore I don't feel I should have to. Now, again, that is probably the most craziest thing I've ever heard as far as a vendor explaining. But this email was actually copied not only to the actual vendor from the potential client, but also copied to me so we can discuss it. And I want to bring up some points of what's actually out there that you guys are dealing with when I tell you to please do your due diligence, to be careful, because again, there are unscrupulous vendors out there. So let's just take a quick gander at this email. Please take a look at the documents in this video showing how the machine failed to perform again today. The issue is still not resolved, and I'm asking that you please pick up the machine and provide immediate full reimbursement plus compensation for the lost revenue and time trying to get this machine up and running. I'm requesting a full refund plus $2,275 for a portion of my time and lost revenue. Now, guys, think about that for a minute. $2,275 in lost time from revenue, and you figure in that he's also paid about, I don't even know, I'm assuming a couple $1,000. This particular machine was like $5,500. So on top of the initial investment, he's lost this amount of money on top of that, plus any clients that are unhappy with the fact that now their lead times are extended, or potentially just new clients that now are pissed off because he couldn't fulfill orders. Okay, this is extremely real. I know a lot of you review my channel. You'll find me in the worst possible way, which I always hope you find my channel, just doing your due diligence rather than experiencing a problem. But again, these problems are real, and you're seeing it quantified right before you. The next paragraph, as I mentioned in my text message to you earlier today, the torch does not turn off and start cutting, and that is better, but still haven't solved the total issues. That being in the case today, the torch transverses left and crashes into the limit switch after finished cutting. Second, we have cut quality problems on arcs even after making a simple square and comparing it to the square with rounded corners, as can be seen in the pictures attached. And yesterday the torch would come down and crash into the metal like it did before, but not every time. Cut quality, arc not smooth, is secondary to the ability to get the machine stable, of which we have still yet to accomplish. To be clear, the replacement controller has not solved the problem. Now, once again, guys, to be clear, the replacement controller has not solved the problem. So the vendor apparently identified and agreed with the client of theirs and decided to send him another controller, and the other controller still has the same issues. Okay? Once again, one red flag, you already know the system isn't using shielded cables on a plasma system, which once again, if you guys go through my videos, you're going to find out that is an entirely different animal when it comes to setup. Double shielded cables are mandatory. As far as I'm concerned, they're actually mandatory. You can get away with shielded cables in some situations, but realistically, for best practice, double shielded cables for those systems are a must due to the amps we're dealing with, and again, the electromagnetic interference. He goes on to say, yesterday's test, the torch would operate 90% of the time consistent, but 10% of the time it would do weird things, like raising too far up and lowering too far down, which is much better than where we were with the prior controller, but 80% to 90% is still not acceptable. From our last phone conversation, you stated that replacing the controller was the only possible solution to try, as you were stumped to what else it could be. So I'm assuming you have no other solutions based on that. again, guys, we all know if you guys are purchasing a robot, whatever genre it may be in CNC, whether it be for milling, whether it be for plasma cutting, if you don't have the stability you require, essentially the robot is useless. I mean, you're basically taking gambles every time you guys decide to, run a job and hope that it'll actually complete the actual process. We have to analyze that, and I cannot emphasize that enough. There is no such thing as it almost works with a robot. It's either right or it's wrong. There are inconsistencies that will plague a lot of systems. The main thing is debugging them and knowing what to look for. 80% to 90% to most of you will just be simply not acceptable. Because we are struggling with so many random issues, instability, I'm continuing to lose money by this machine not operating during peak season of the year. It's obvious to me the controller has not solved the multiple problems that there is, lack of knowing how to get rid of the root cause. Therefore, I'm in a rock and a hard place and having to go a different direction for a solution. I trusted in good faith that I was getting the turnkey solution from you, which is advertised as such, and it has been everything but that. I have many hours tied up in troubleshooting this system, followed with frustrations of having a timely response to solve the issue. Not to mention the thousands of dollars in lost revenue. Please understand my concern also lies with the ability to truly find root causes, especially having to debate with you on EMI, starting with me having to explain it to you. You heard that correct, guys. This potential client actually had to explain to the vendor of his plasma system what EMI is. If you ever encounter that, we already know that's a huge, huge red flag. My expectation was that you or your company had the electrical engineering knowledge in-house or an external resource. If not, and it's obvious neither is the case. It's further concerning to me that my research in the problem leads to publications from reputable USA companies like Lincoln Electric and Hypotherm, which he's basically discussing more or less that he's reviewed my video in the PDF document that I've uploaded, specifically covering topics on electromagnetic interference and proper shielding and grounding of plasma CNC systems to protect the systems from electronic noise. Your response to this topic was your competitors do not use shielded cabling, and Proma Electronic recommends not to use shielded cabling, and therefore it's not necessary. Now, guys, if you take the time to review Proma's THC 150, which is what this potential client is discussing, you will find that in the user's manual, it does plainly and boldly discuss utilizing shielded cable. Okay? Again, I don't know where this vendor is getting their information, but like I've said before, your due diligence in asking the right questions will save you thousands upon thousands of dollars. He goes on to say, however, Lincoln Electric, your competitor, teaches and promotes proper shielding for EMI protection. The matter wasn't improved when you committed to sending me a control last week on Wednesday and didn't ship it until this Monday. So once again, we have a lead time issue. He said he was going to ship it last week on Wednesday and didn't end up shipping it to the following Monday. There was also no follow-up, no heads up, no concern of my downtime. It was further troubling to me when on your text message to me today stating you cannot help me if I don't reach out. This is pretty offensive considering I have already informed you that I felt you were not being responsive when I reached out to you from the beginning, and you did not bother to contact me when you were nearly a week late shipping out the replacement controller, your only solution to my problem. I have notified Martin Capital Solutions, the lease company, of the issue and have consulted a third-party electrical engineer, that's me, to assist in finding an alternative solution to getting me operable. By the way, I tried calling you around noon but could not reach you. If you have a robust course of action that I and my third-party electrical engineer feel can actually get us toward a solution, I'm willing to listen. If not, let's discuss a very quickly arrangement for pickup compensation so I can move on. To follow up with this, as far as the response that he actually received from this vendor, the vendor is actually having an electrical engineer of some sort that they're related to, they have some sort of relation with, actually troubleshoot the system for this potential client. So he did get some sort of vindication, I suppose. And once again, it was interesting to point out that some of the drivers he felt in the new controller, this is their own electrical engineer, he felt that some of the drivers in the new controller were not up to par. So they were looking at doing a direct replacement for those. Guys, I cannot emphasize this enough, and I've said it in previous videos time and time again. I hate these kind of stories. It's not right, and it's happening, more and more. And I've said this before. It's peak season now. You guys really have to be on the lookout as far as what's out there. Ask the right questions, you'll get the right answers. I've got 188 videos. 188 videos I've uploaded to take snapshots in time to educate as many of you as possible on what you're working with. It's really up to you then to invest that time. If you would like to have me get involved with your purchase, I can tell you this. I cannot do that for free because the time involved for me to contact the vendor and discuss with them what we're dealing with is going to take time out of my day from my business. You will pay me for that, but I promise you this, it will be a hell of a lot less than you going through this kind of problem here on top of the initial investment. So when you think about that, always look at that from that perspective. Okay, whether you buy from me, you buy from someone else, make sure you do your due diligence. And to confirm that this is not an isolated issue. I was surfing the web, as I always do, and I found something that I feel is really something to bring up because this just shows this is happening all over the web in a mass abundance. I took a snapshot. All I'm using here is an actual snipping tool. This is in Windows. I took a snapshot. I'm not disclosing the company. They're offering a controller, okay? And I highlighted things to pay close attention to. This particular controller is called their 5-axis system, okay? We can see here it comes with 5 drivers, 5 NEMA 23 steppers. Again, they're not disclosing the amp rating on the steppers. They are disclosing that it comes with 15-foot motor cables. Once again, not disclosing. Are these cables shielded, double shielded? Are they bare leads? What are they? What's most interesting and most appalling, if you look here, a 48 volt 7.3 amp power supply. Okay? Well, let's look at the actual basis here, and this I'm going to prove to you just how convoluted and shady this looks. They're not disclosing the amp rating on the motors. Hypothetically, a NEMA 23 will typically run 2.8 to 3 amps. That's on average. Okay? If you wire them in series, which is a bipolar stepper motor where it would have 4 leads, which is about 90% of the market. If we say they're averaging about 3 amps, you divide that by 3 because when you divide it by 3, you will be actually connecting that to the drives in a bipolar configuration, which means they're only pulling roughly a third of their rated amps. And I'm going to prove that to you over on Gecko's site because I get this question a lot where guys say, well, how are you running a 600 watt power supply to actually control a 5-axis system? Well, once again, if we're only running a third of its actual amp rating as far as the max amp rating on the stepper, you would only be required for each motor to have a single amp on that power supply as far as draw. Okay, real simple. But this is what's interesting. You can see here this guy's got 5 motors. Okay, so that means he's pulling 5 amps. Even if the motors are 3 amps, he's pulling 5 amps from a 7.3 amp power supply. Let's look at the fact that you're also pulling amps for these 5 drivers, which aren't even into that equation. Okay? Do you think that that's the best selection of a power supply for this system? It isn't. It is not. To confirm what I'm saying, because once again, I get asked all the time, we can come right over here. I'm going to just bring up my calculation right here. And you can see from Gecko Drive, I'm on their site. As a matter of fact, the website, I just took a snippet from this, the video. I'm actually shrinking the window from the laptop, only so I'm not releasing any of the potential clients' information from the original email. The website's address, geckodrive.com/support/step-motor-basics/supply/basics.html. Okay, if you guys look that up or just Google, and the easiest way to do this is just Google Gecko Drive power supply ratings, you can see here the choice of a power supply is determined by voltage, current, and power supply type, i.e. switching versus linear, regulated versus unregulated, etc. By far the most problematic and complicated factor is voltage, which we will be discussed last. The easiest factor in choosing a power supply is its current rating, which is based on your motor's ratings. A motor control will always draw less than 2/3 of the motor's rated current when it is connected in parallel or half winding, and 1/3 of the motor's rated current when it's in series or full winding connecting. That is to say, a 6 amp per phase motor will require 4 amp power supply when wired in parallel, and a 2 amp power supply when wired in series. If multiple motors and drives are used, add the current requirements of each to arrive at the total power supply current rating. Well, guys, you already know just from this information. Using this information, it's readily available. I didn't write this. You can contact Marcus over at Gecko Drive or any other tech support team. You can utilize this information. And once again, if we look at what we've got here, you can see this equation does not even make sense. Of course, we're missing details here, and this is why I'm telling you this is an active website actively selling these systems right now. Okay? Please be careful. I'm just telling you, because thank God this potential client actually purchased or leased the system rather than buying it. It was only a couple weeks old. He's gone through all this hell, and it's only been a couple weeks old. It even got to the point where I explained to you guys already, they have their own internal electrical engineer of some sort, some type of acquaintance or whatnot. At one point, they even discussed to this potential client about the system, contacting one of their previous clients to help him set up their system, which I feel is absolutely ridiculous. But either way, these are the things to be careful of. These are true stories from the trenches, and again, things I deal with every day. So again, you guys looking at these numbers, you guys definitely be the judge. Another thing to point out here, it says, note, we do not offer tech support on demo software, and all licensed software is supported by the software company. If you guys are new to CNC and you do not know how to use software, you're not competent with a PC, even using Windows, you can rest assured you're going to go backwards real quick when companies put disclosures like that. Okay? Companies that are selling full systems need to understand who they're selling to, or they disclose on there, we are not selling to a novice, you must be fully aware, so on and so forth, as this one is doing here. But I just find it very, very strange how they decided to put here no specs on the motors, no specs on the cables, and yet they did disclose the power supply amp rating, which can be really confusing, especially when you see these steppers. And unless these NEMA 23s are extremely rare produced low amp motors, which, like I said, about 95%, 90-95% of the general market on NEMA 23s are bipolar series steppers, meaning they only have 4 leads, and their typical amp rating is 3 amps. Lowest is typically 2.8 amps. You are running a hellaciously low amp power supply to drive that entire system, especially when we're factoring in 5 additional drives to power those actual motors. So again, who am I? Don't take my word for it. Again, you can go over to Gecko's site, check it out. It's right here. This is all right here for you guys. Again, guys, to all my subscribers, I love you. I will continue to do videos. To my guys who are just finding my channel, once again, I hope you guys find my channel prior to making a purchase. If you're getting convoluted information, ask all the questions you need. It'll definitely save you thousands. Take care.